Good evening and welcome to the second half of the 31st Annual LaFollette Film Forum. Tonight, our topic, and you can bet it's a good one, deals with the Negro and the Ku Klux Klan. For those of you who are new at this forum, who haven't been following our three-series forum, let me briefly describe the format of the forum. We have two speakers for you tonight, one from the community and one from the university. They will start out the forum with a short discussion upon the Ku Klux Klan and their various programs. After their short discussion, we will have a film, and I might say this is a very brutal film, on what the Ku Klux Klan really means to most of you who aren't familiar with it. I'm sure you'll be as shocked as I was. And last of all, after the film, and we hope that this is the meat of our sessions here tonight, that is the forum, in which we try to have a meeting of minds, both black and white, over this very important social issue in our country today. Also, I would like to present to you the fact that we are still selling, courtesy of the Pepsi-Cola Company, at cost, their cost now, 89 cents, an LP called Adventures in Negro History. And for many of you who are teachers yourselves, I'm sure you will find this very, very applicable on the junior level, the elementary level, and the high school, as far as your individual programs might go, and for 89 cents, it's quite a buy. Without further ado, I guess I would best introduce Dr. Everett Farrell, Chairman of the Department of History at Ball State University, who will handle the major introductions this evening. Dr. Farrell.
Thank you, Leo. On behalf of the History Department at Ball State University, I would like to express our appreciation for your attendance and the support which you've given to the first half of these sessions. I think that we have proved that when honest and sincere men and women get together and exchange ideas, that we can make some progress. Our objective has not been to solve problems, it's been to chase rabbits, and I'm sure we'd be disappointed if we caught very many of them. But we certainly have proved that we have learned to disagree without being disagreeable. And I'm sure that if we all go away from these 6 sessions thinking the same way, some of us won't be thinking. So we're very happy that we have differences in points of view. It's my distinct pleasure tonight to present to you, particularly the people downtown, and I'm sure the Ball State community, a man that is well known. This man, almost 20 years ago, who happens to be our distinguished guest here from the community, joined the Muncie Police Force. He was an outstanding athlete at Muncie Central in basketball, in football, and I understand still does some fairly high-powered refereeing in this area. In 1957, our distinguished guest was invited to come to the FB Academy for training for police officers. And to my knowledge, this is the only man any place around in East Central Indiana that I know that has been invited to attend this academy. I might also say that, and I think this is another record that he has, that on 3 different occasions he has been the police chief of Muncie, Indiana. And I think that Jim will agree that in all 3 of the cases I helped twist his arm to get him to say yes. We had to twist a little harder this last time. But we certainly played a role in helping to get him to become the police chief, because I certainly think he's one of the outstanding police chiefs in this around in the area of Indiana, any place you can find. Early this year, he was appointed by Governor Brannigan to help formulate policies for the police academy that is being established. He was a Navy veteran in World War II, was called back during the Korean conflict. As a friend, as an athlete, an outstanding law enforcement official, and as an excellent police chief, it is my distinct pleasure to present to you James Patrick Carey. Chief Carey.
Thank you for those very kind words, Dr. Farrell. On Sunday's newspaper this week, there's a caption on the back page. It states, 3 professors, Chief Carey to speak. My wife, who happens to be an English major, a teacher in a community schools, she kind of shook her head and became a little bit bewildered. But seriously, I do feel very grateful for being invited to pass a few words with you here this evening. We'll have a question period later. We never fail to come to one of these meetings while we don't feel that we gather something helpful to us. We actually welcome your constructive criticism. One thing I do want to make clear is that you can be just as critical with me as you like, but I do have 6 police cars surrounding the building. So I hope no one gets too far out of line. Another thing that never fails, I'd like to, before I get into the meat of the matter, in about the 5th row here is a very charming young lady, Miss Eleanor Bly. Many of you may know or may not know. She is a retired school teacher in the city of Muncie, one of the finest people that I've ever had the pleasure of knowing. It never fails again, I come to give a little talk. She was my speech teacher in high school. And believe me, this gal was tough, and if I ever got a C, I was very lucky. So you can see what you're in for this evening. But it is good to see you, Miss Bly. I would like to get into a little serious vein and explain to you what we feel we're trying to do in the area of law enforcement in the city of Muncie. Number one, I think we can stand on our record. I think we can state that we have no charges of police brutality against us, such as we read in our surrounding communities. I think we're trying to strive to create programs that actually we're going out of the realm of law enforcement to create better relations within our community, especially within the young people in our community. For example, we have our POW Club. Each day, if you go down on North Walnut Street, you'll see the doors swinging open and closed. We have an average of 150 to 200 boys going in the POW Club each day, both white and Negro. Fellowship. We have 6 ball teams sponsored by the POW Club. They're completely outfitted. Different merchants throughout the city have outfitted these ball teams. Very strong program for the summer. We like to keep the young people busy. Another program that we feel we're very proud of. We're one of the few cities in the state and perhaps in the country that has what we term a police cadet corps. We have about 65 active members, both from the junior high age and the high school age, from all of our 3 high schools in the city of Muncie. And we're working hand in hand, both, again, white and Negro. We don't have problems. We discuss what we need in law enforcement. We like to get the young people's example. We let them perhaps work around our radio cars. We let them work in our offices, working and helping, assisting the clerical women in our divisions, in our records division. We let them work around the radio shack where our dispatchers are dispatched to from our cars to our various crimes of violence. We like to let them get first-hand information of the problems that we have in law enforcement. I think today, perhaps law enforcement has the greatest strain on it it's ever had in the history of our country. Many of you in this room, your business professional people, you have a day, 2 days, or a week to make a decision. Many, many times our police officers today, not only here in Muncie, to make second decisions. This is why I feel in Muncie. You read many times about our training programs, our schools, our public relations program, recently our Say Hi program. We want this police officer to throw this hand up, say hi to people, be kind. And this is what we're trying to do, is create what we like to term a new image in law enforcement in Muncie. I think that in 4 more months, tremendous changes I've seen since I've been with the Muncie Police Department. When I came on the police department, I was handed a gun, which I'd never fired. I was given a badge and told to go to work that night at 11 o'clock with a man that had been on about 10, 15 years. He said he'll show you how to be a police officer. Today in the city of Muncie, our men are not only required by merit law, we're very strict about it. They have to pass very strenuous mental examinations conducted right here on the university grounds. We have very strenuous and very tough testing that they have to pass. We run a complete background on a check on this man. We like to see what kind of a man he is. We like to see if he's a family man, if he has a religious background, just how he pays his bills, just what his obligation he feels is to his community. In other words, we're trying to feel that if you are qualified, we want you as police officers. And in the past, this hasn't been true, including myself. The way I became a police officer in the city of Muncie, I had an uncle who knew a fellow was a city councilman, and this was the way our jobs were obtained, strictly politics. And in many, many of our surrounding cities, it still goes on today. Anderson, Richmond, Marion, Fort Wayne. No merit to it whatsoever. But today, the idea of knowing anybody or pulling a few strings to be a police officer in the city of Muncie is a thing of the past. I know you've heard many times about our merit commission, the goods and the bads, but I'll go on record as saying this. In the 18 men that the merit commission has selected, trained, and put on the police department, we have had little or no disciplinary problems with whatsoever. They have been the outstanding young man. He's been a dedicated man and has done a tremendous job for the citizens of Muncie. I think that's enough for our training. Another thing that I like to say is that for the first time in many, many summers, I like to go on record as saying that I feel a different feeling about the city of Muncie this summer. Many, many people, I think they live on rumor, they live on hysteria, they are tempted to expel things that are falsehoods. I think our community right now is in tremendous shape, and I base it on several reasons. I think that we have a very active action group. I think we have a very active YES program this summer with our young people. No longer today, I received a letter and talked on the phone twice with Miss Alice Robinson of the Action Committee. We have a young Negro subject's in trouble. He's had 2 or 3 serious scrapes with the law, and we're trying to get a boy to make and create this good example, helping, rehabilitate him, and show the young people that law enforcement is here not only to arrest and prosecute, but we're certainly mandated and charged to prevent crime before it happens. So we feel very proud of our record in working with Action. Officer Jim Peters is a liaison officer with us. He is attached to the Action Committee. Another thing that we like to feel proud about is our help and endeavor in finding young people jobs. One day last week, I'll even use the name, the Kim Ton Tool Company here in Muncie. I had lunch with these 2 men. They said, Chief, help us find 2 young Negro boys that are sharp, that are qualified. We want to train them. We want them to be apprentices. We want them to be tool makers. We want them in our organization. Now, this is the type of the thing, and right away we contacted certain people we knew could assist us in this program. And this is the type of program that we're proud of in law enforcement. We don't feel that it's only our obligation, again, not to be repetitious, to arrest and prosecute. We like to feel that we have a part of the community, and we are a very essential part. Again, I think that one of the main reasons that the peace and tranquility in our community is such as forums as this. I think when we sit down and discuss, we read about other towns, violence, this and that. There's no place for that in Muncie. No place in it whatsoever. When you can meet like this, discuss your ideas, find out where we're wrong. I'm not standing up here telling you the Muncie Police Department's perfect. We're not. We have many, many areas that we need correction, we need help in. We need more money in our budgets, just like many of you people work in your place of the business. But I will go on record, and we'll stand on our record, that the Muncie Police Department, in my opinion, is doing one of the most tremendous jobs of any city in Indiana today. I think, for example, you go out on the street when you leave here, you'll see the Negro and the white officer in the same car. Go to another town, 50 miles away, 100 miles away, see how often you see it. And these men aren't doing it under fear or because Jim Carrey's telling them to do it. These guys are loving it. I'll tell you more things. I'm going to be very factual with you. The first time I became chief of police was in 1958. Colored police officers didn't ride in police cars. They walked beats in the city of Muncie. They walked beats. They walked beats on South Walnut Street. They walked beats out on Highland Avenue out in Whiteley. 2 of the finest officers I've ever had, one of the granddaughter and the daughter, one of them's in this group right here, the Millers. Brother John Miller and Officer Melvin. Fine people. But these men never had the opportunity to ride in a police car. They walked beats. So this was my opportunity to put them in a car. We put them in cars. They did a tremendous job. Now then, here on my 3rd trip around, I've had the opportunity to what we term as integrating our police cars. I thought perhaps some people thought, well, you'll have problems. They'll be critical of you. Maybe some of the men will have some new names for the chief of police. We have 121 men, and they have certain names for a chief of police. A lot of times aren't too flattering. I won't repeat here. But this was all taken in the wrong vein. I have had not one complaint from one of my officers, either white or Negro, that has had any fear or any sad feeling about working with a fellow officer. Every one of our cars are integrated. If I had more fine colored police officers, I'm not here selling a bill of goods or anything, if I had more good qualified police officers, I'd have more integrated cars. Because in my opinion, men like John Casey, one of my captains, John McCain, Sonny Burks. I'll tell a little story about Sonny. I don't want to take all the doctor's time. Today happens to be my daughter's 13th birthday. So I was a little bit late. I had a little cake and ice cream. We had a little cookout, and which I didn't need. But today also happens to be Officer Burks. If many of you may or may not know him, he's one of my Negro motorcycle officers. He's a little short and about that wide. Today happens to be his birthday, too. So he says, Chief, about 3 o'clock, he says, how about getting off a couple of hours early? He says, today's my birthday. I said, well, I can't do that, but if you'll be in my house at 6, we'll have a bite to eat together. So all of our family, and Sonny pulled up on the motorcycle, and my daughter, 13, and Sonny shook hands and said, happy birthday, and we sat down and broke some bread together. But, and also, again, along these lines, speaking of the Negro police, I will just take a couple minutes to tell you of our feelings and our experience in handling the KKK in the last Saturday of February. This Grand Dragon, this so-called Cheney, called me, sent me a registered letter. Said he's coming to Muncie. I very plainly told him what I thought of it. But again, we do have our rights. The Supreme Court has given us many rights, some good and some maybe bad. But he informed me of their plans We talked on the phone 4 different times, and I feel I gathered a great deal of information from this man. I was taping all his phone calls, and I feel for sure, later on I found out he was taping all mine. But to show you how these type of people, these type of individuals work, the figure of their minds and how what kind of concepts they have. They had people in town 2 hours before they were to be here, walkie-talkies. They had communications. Now, these people are no dummies. They have trainings. They have plans. They're just like you people in your various businesses. They work at this. They believe in what they think they're doing is right. And again, I had many, many words with this Cheney. I told him we was going down 2 blocks. We was going to cross the street and come back 2 more, and they was getting out of town. And this is just what happened. Dr. Rosenberg yesterday stated that his wife asked him upon returning home if there's any trouble. He says, no, there was too many policemen down there. If you even looked cross-eyed, you'd had trouble. But one of the things that I feel, again, was a tribute at this time. We tried to keep the publicity down a little bit. We felt we didn't want to excite our community. And on the Saturday before they come, we turn on Channel 8 in Indianapolis, and here it is on the news, a picture of the Grand Dragon. They're going to be in Muncie. See, I think that news media, no reflection on our WLBC TV, but a lot of times I feel that the news media perhaps hinders law enforcement to a certain extent. I'm a firm believer in getting the facts out. I'm not for subduing or depressing information that the public should know. No such thing. But I think that a lot of times this creates the rumor that goes through our community. I've had everything told to me from our police dogs have been poisoned, 2 of my police officers have been shot. The stories that I hear, the rumors on my phone, you wouldn't believe. But if everybody would relax and look around and realize that we have problems in Muncie. We certainly have problems in Muncie in our race relations. But for the first time in many, many summers, I'll stand before you and tell you, as far as being the chief of police, I see more action going on to correct some of the problems that we have, both in housing and education and employment. But we still have a long way to go. But I want to say that I think we're on the right track. We're doing it the peaceful way. We'll also say that we have a trained police department, and we will not tolerate any violence. We're not asking people to be nice and work hand in hand. It's just going to be this way. We aren't going to stand for any violence in the city of Muncie. We aren't going to have the disgrace come to Muncie that comes to many other communities. But again, we're going to work hand in hand with all these committees, and I think with the various groups that are working, the city fathers, they're interested in their community, and if everybody will accept the one main fact that we have problems in race relations. Things aren't perfect in Muncie. They're a long way from being perfect. But I will say that we're making very strenuous grounds, and I'll stand on our record for the police department. We aren't going to try to stand for any police brutality in any shape or form. We're going to have a good, strong public relations program. And I will conclude now, and again, I certainly want to thank you for having the opportunity to come and speak before you, let you know what our side of it is. If any of you have any criticism or ideas or constructive suggestions when it's over, I'll answer them to the best of my ability. And again, I thank you.
I present Dr. Rosenberg. There are so many fine things I'm going to say about him. I think for you people here on the campus know that the only 2 bad things I can think about, you know that he is pro-German and pro-Arab. It is a real pleasure to present to you tonight one of our outstanding history professors. He received his BA and his MA from Trinity College and his PhD from Iowa. He is known as an exciting and stimulating teacher. He's a fine scholar. He has been known for the very fine work he has done in the honors program, and many of the honors students spend a great deal of time visiting and discussing items of interest to them with Dr. Rosenberg. A couple of years ago, he was a nominee for the Danforth Award for the outstanding professor at Ball State University. As a friend, as a colleague, and an exciting teacher, it's a real pleasure to present to you Dr. Morton Rosenberg, who will talk about the KKK. Dr. Rosenberg.
Thank you very much, Dr. Farrell. First of all, let me say that I'm very pleased to discover that the building is surrounded by Muncie's finest. I don't know about you people in the back, but you could tell by Chief Kerry's girth that very few people are willing to go one-on-one with him in a direct confrontation. And secondly, if the chief has had the various names directed at him, he should have hear what students might say about me behind my back. This evening movie is a hard-hitting, powerful, almost brutal film that presents with a great deal of candor information and insights about the Ku Klux Klan that most Americans either are unwilling or unable to discover for themselves. The Klan is on the Attorney General's subversive list as an un-American organization. But let me assure you that the Ku Klux Klan is as American as a drive-in movie theater, hamburger, hot dogs, and apple pie. The antecedents of the Klan go back deeply into the 19th century, to the pre-Civil War period, when you have a great deal of natural animosity directed against the Negro. Let me remind you that even Abraham Lincoln has a racist record with respect to the Negro, even though he's earned the title of the Great Emancipator. In the pre-Civil War period, there sprang up for a period of approximately 10 years the so-called American Party, or Know Nothing Party, dedicated to a platform of anti-foreign and anti-Catholic political propaganda. And during a 10-year period from, say, around the late 1840s to the late 1850s, the Know Nothing Party was eminently successful on the state level throughout many of the northern states, both from the standpoint of the Midwest as well as the standpoint of the Northeast. After the Civil War, we find another anti-Catholic movement developing known as the American Protective Association, oddly enough originating out of a small town in those days called Clinton, Iowa. Consequently, the Ku Klux Klan did not have to invent, did not have to conjure up any sense of bigotry among Americans. It was already there. Towards the end of the 19th century, with the large influx of immigrants from Europe who happened to be of the Jewish faith, Americans added another dimension to their sense of intolerance, anti-Semitism. Indeed, in the South, in the antebellum South, there was little or no anti-Semitism whatsoever. Today, we normally associate most parts of the South with a certain anti-Semitic streak. Let me remind you that a member of the Confederate cabinet was Judah P. Benjamin, who was of the Jewish faith. One would have to wait a good many years before we get a Jewish member in the so-called Union cabinet. The Ku Klux Klan is really three organizations in one. It is a fraternity, much like collegiate fraternities, perhaps. Or sororities. Let me go on record as saying that I am not against, on principle, fraternities or sororities that should not be misconstrued. However, they have in the fraternal organization, the Ku Klux Klan, secret handshake, secret passwords, secret initiations, crackpot titles, grand, Imperial Wizards, Clud. That's the minister, you understand, the Clud. That's a very peculiar name. The Consul is the legal brains, the Grand Dragon, the Kleagle. Those of you who are in fraternities and sororities, think of the names of some of the officers. Think of your secret handshakes. Think of your secret passwords. think of your secret initiation ceremonies. You're going to see an initiation ceremony tonight. This film was made, obviously, with the cooperation of the Ku Klux Klan. How CBS pulled it off, I'll never know. As a social organization, it presents rallies, has almost like revival meetings, hellfire and damnation speakers, picnics. It's a wonderful social club. You'll see pictures of women and children all dressed up in handmade, for children at any rate, Klan outfits. Look very, very cute. The second function of the Klan is as a vigilante outfit. And I'm sure you're familiar with what they do as vigilantes. Now, the modern Klan tries to pretend that it is foursquare in favor of law and order, and it's not responsible for any actions undertaken by individuals who happen to be Klan members. And of course, the American system of law and order being what it is, of course, very difficult to indict the Klan for actions of individuals who happen to be Klan members. For example, in Meridian, Mississippi, about 2 weeks ago, the police had a house of a prominent Jewish businessman staked out, which is unusual for the police in Meridian, Mississippi, probably. And they caught red-handed an individual carrying a box accompanied by a woman. The individual was captured alive, minus one arm, because the police managed to shoot it off. The individual who lost this arm was shooting at the police with a submachine gun, and he killed at least one officer, so you can be sure he will be brought to justice. You don't simply kill a cop. And the woman who was shot dead through the head was a school teacher. One wonders what she taught in the 5th grade in Jackson, Mississippi. One wonders how many school teachers are in the Klan, not only in the South, but perhaps elsewhere. Indiana has been a fertile ground for Klan recruitment. All kinds of atrocities have been attributed to Klansmen. You'll see a number of them depicted for you on the screen this evening. The third function of the Klan is a resistance movement. The Klan is opposed to change, to progress, and indeed has a great deal of support from large segments of American society here, and I'll have a word to say about that in a moment. The Klan is anti-foreign, anti-Negro, anti-Jew, anti-Catholic, anti-Mormon. I bet you didn't know that, did you? The Klan is anti-Mormon. It's even anti-certain kinds of Protestantism. You will be surprised to discover, as I discovered when I previewed the film, that the Klan headed by Robert Shelton does not permit certain kinds of Protestant denominations to be admitted unto his order. Perhaps they are too liberal. I really don't know. They were not mentioned. Incidentally, as a kind of parenthetical addition, let me point out to you that there is no monolithic structure called the Ku Klux Klan. There are many organizations with the title Ku Klux Klan, and you will see tonight the principal rival of Mr. Shelton is a fellow by the name of Mr. Venable. Shelton, I don't believe, appears in Klan robes. Venable does appear in Klan robes. One might suspect that the robe, the hood, shaped in the points, might be an excellent fit for most of these individuals. Now, it is, I suppose it's good to have a good deal of humor and sarcasm when one is thinking of the Klan, but there's nothing funny about it when the night riders decide to pick on you, and you'll discover what happened to one or two individuals who ran afoul of the Klan. For those of you in the audience who are Klansmen, I am well armed. The Klan has been opposed to water fluoridation, been opposed to the United Nations. opposed to open housing. Now, why is the Klan still alive? The Klan was founded shortly after the Civil War as a joke. 6 ex-Confederates had nothing better to do, so they decided to form a crackpot organization just to have fun. And they had no hostility or animosity in mind whatsoever. But when it was discovered that they could frighten the newly freed Negroes, then the Klan began to be used in a sinister way. And ultimately, the excesses of the Klan, coupled with the end of Reconstruction, brought about its demise. And essentially, by the 1870s, the Klan was dead. And then it was revived in 1915. Somebody discovered that the Klan could be a money-making proposition. You'll discover in the movie tonight that many, many individuals in the Klan are failures in life, and the Klan has helped them to achieve financial success. And during the period of the 1920s, when intolerance, bigotry, indeed stupidity ran rampant through the land, as well witnessed by the Red Scare, or by the Sacco-Vanzetti case, or by the Scopes trial, or indeed even by Prohibition, or perhaps by the 19th Amendment. We can add that, I think. The Klan had a field day in Indiana. The Klan boasted that its alone elected officials to public office on the local and perhaps state levels. The Klan liked to boast that they prevented a Roman Catholic from becoming president of the United States. This, I think, is a little overstatement. Mr. Al Smith would have lost anyway. Americans do not vote against their pocketbook, and there was prosperity in 1928. I could now digress into a 15-minute political speech about the current election, but I won't. HHH. Why is the Klan resurging today? Well, a variety of reasons. The 1954 desegregation decision, the greater militancy on the part of the Negro. Many of us who don't happen to be Negro have often wondered what took them so long to become militant. Uncertainty, insecurity, fear, communism, a whole variety of feelings of insecurity. But there may be another reason. There may be another reason. I think this is a job for the sociologists, for the psychologists, for the social psychologists, put them together. There may be a flaw in certain kinds of American Protestant, denominational, or sectarian religion. These are the conservative elements which have from time immemorial supported the Klan, or the American Nazi Party, or the American States Rights Party, or the Know-Nothing Party if one wants to get back into the 19th century. Other forms of Protestantism throughout the world are not as peculiar as certain kinds or certain branches of American conservative Protestantism. I deliberately avoid the use of the word fundamentalist because the connotation here is not to be construed as being necessarily antagonistic to fundamentalism. When the Ku Klux Klan attempted to recruit certain overseas members, despite their anti-foreign tendencies, they decided that Nordics were okay, Aryans were okay, and so they went into Scandinavia and Great Britain and Scotland and Germany, and they got no place in the 1920s, with the exception, of course, in Nazi lands. There, of course, the Germans also have a psychological flaw. They would be pro-Arab if the Arabs weren't foreigners. Klan uses the paraphernalia of conservative fundamentalist religion, as you'll see tonight, in a perversion of Christianity, in a perversion of the baptism, or indeed there are elements of the transubstantiation of miracle of the Roman Catholics even, a perversion of everything Christ and the disciples stood for. The ironic thing, of course, is that they would reject Christ because he was both a Jew and a foreigner. And yet, according to Klan literature, the reason why Jews are not invited to membership is because the name Jesus Christ is used frequently throughout the meetings, and they would not want to insult Jews, but they would apparently be willing to insult Jesus Christ. One can speak for many, many minutes, hours on the Ku Klux Klan, but the movie says it much better than I can. I hope that some of you are stunned and shaken by the movie. Others of you will probably decide, if you happen to be friendly to the principles of the Klan, as undoubtedly some of you may very well be, that the movie is a distortion. Because in the Klan literature, which I happen to have in my possession, I went downtown, you see, when the Klan marched. I went looking for trouble. Not that I was going to participate in it. A man my size doesn't normally try to participate in trouble. And the literature warns would-be Klansmen to beware of historians and other individuals who distort the truth by sins of omission and commission. Undoubtedly, the film will be in this category. Undoubtedly, also, some of the remarks I've made this evening would be in this category. You determine for yourself whether or not the film is essentially true. You determine for yourselves and through readings which you can do, merely picking up the newspaper even, whether or not some of my remarks skirt the truth. In any respect, after the film is over and behind the protection of Muncie's finest, I'll be willing to participate with you in a forum. Thank you.